thank you all so much, and congratulations to our founders. Thank you for being here. Martha and the rest of the team, before we get started into this discussion about green innovation and some of the startups, I wanted to maybe first give you all an opportunity to share more about your innovation, what the goal was, what the North Star was when you started, and where you're at right now. Ayoola, do you maybe want to start?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
So thank you very much. Great pleasure being here. Once again, my name is Ayoola Dominic. I work for a startup called Koolboks. Just to give you a bit of a context, you have over 600 million people in sub-Saharan Africa that lacks access to electricity, thereby lacking access to refrigeration. A lot of the times we take for granted refrigeration in the West, where you have 100% penetration of refrigeration. In sub-Saharan Africa, do you know the number? It's only 17% of the people that have access to refrigeration. A lot of times we hear people talk about, let us light up the world, let us light up Africa, but rarely do you hear people talk about, let us refrigerate Africa. And that's the problem Koolboks is trying to solve. So we created a solution that is able to generate refrigeration using the sun and the water to be able to generate refrigeration, which is very abundant in Africa. And we did that by integrating a pay-as-you-go technology in refrigerators, making it affordable and accessible to people that need them the most. So that is what we do. And so far, I would let Mr. Uka go ahead.
All right, thank you very much. Once again, a great opportunity to be here. Thank you, Jennifer, for the introduction. What we do at ThriveAgric is we work with smallholder farmers to give them access to finance, to technology-based advisory, and also access to market upon harvest. And the reason why this is important is because many of the farmers in Africa go through primarily they lack access to finance to be able to grow crops. Africa has close to over half a billion farmers. We started doing this in Nigeria. Nigeria has about 40 million farmers, and many of these farmers do not have access to financing. So far, we've been able to fund the farmers with over $100 million in financing, input financing so far. We're present in Nigeria, Ghana, Kenya, Uganda, and Tanzania. And we've aggregated over 1 million farmers working with strategically to link them to finance, provide technology advisory, and also access to market. But while doing all of this, we noticed that there has to be a strategic intersection with climate-smart farming, especially when we are thinking about sustainability for the smallholder farmers and how best they can keep farming on the same piece of land that they're working on. So this was where our business model had to move just a little bit more from just farming farmers as it is and it will continue to be, but to identify innovative ways for farmers to adopt innovative climate-smart approach. So one of the things we have been doing over the years, now about 3 years now, is to help the farmers adopt cover cropping, aggregation, and also minimum tillage. Added to that has been infusing biochar technique. So most of the farmers at the point of harvest, we see a lot of waste in the farm that they usually do not use for anything. So what we have worked with them to do is to leverage the waste from the farm and recycle this, and then they can use it for fertilizers. That has been able to increase the yield for the farmers. As opposed to using inorganic fertilizers, most of these farmers have been able to leverage organic means to be able to scale up production. Right. And also, recently, last year, we were able to partner with a Netherlands bank, this is Rabobank, to be able to link the farmers to carbon credits. The goal for this has been able to help farmers to access alternative financing beyond the regular financing that they have access to through ThriveAgric, to be able to increase the land tenure for their farms.
Thanks so much.
So far, that's the work.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Uka. We'll have Yuma.
Thank you very much for having us again. I'm originally from Japan. I'm based in Ethiopia. This is fourth African country that I live in and I work. Our mission is to make urban e-mobility accessible to everyone in Africa, starting in Ethiopia. So what we are doing right now is to import spare parts, CKD, and assemble electric motorbikes to provide a solution, affordable solutions to gig workers for them to earn through the electric mobility. That's what we are doing, but that's just a starting point. We want to expand to electric three-wheelers and then battery swap stations, as well as a geographical expansion beyond Ethiopia. And we are a 2-year-old company. We are very excited to be in the turning point of the country as well.
Thank you so much for sharing all of that. Martha, I'd like to bring you in. We've heard a lot about financing. These are all solutions that are needed at the moment. When you think about financing and what you're looking for within the startup community, what are some of the metrics that you're focused on to invest in?
Okay, thank you. Thank you for that. Good morning, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm Martha Osier, partner with Adenia, which is a private equity fund that's managing just under $1 billion today. We're Pan-African. I lead the East Africa office, and we operate out of 5 hubs in Africa. We have a team in South Africa, Nigeria, Morocco, Egypt, and our head office is in Mauritius. I think what is unique about Adenia is we are a control-only equity fund, which means based on the minimum amount we invest, we generally end up having a significant say in how the companies are operated. So suffice to say, we don't invest in startups, but I think today where the industry has reached in Africa, we see a lot of startups with innovations that have direct applications to our portfolio companies. So if I just take a look at the panelists that we have here, starting with Yuma. In Kenya, we have established today what is the largest, second largest retailer. When we invested, they had 9 stores. Today we have 61 stores. And we have partnered with another green mobility company called Rome Electric. And one, they do the delivery, but I think more important for the startup is we provide them infrastructure where they can build their charging stations. So in terms of financing, it's not necessarily that, oh, you have to do another capital raise. Can you find people in the ecosystem who you can leverage and reduce your CapEx costs? Because I'm sure to set up or to go to I don't know how many landlords or property owners and say, I want to establish charging stations. Yet if you have a supermarket with 61 physical brick and mortar locations, that's an easy way for you to plug into the system. So we're not directly funding startups, but I think for startups that have applications to our existing businesses, that's an indirect way of financing and supporting them to grow.
And we talk so much about the ecosystem. Thanks, Martha. And each of you really lean on the ecosystem and the infrastructure being developed in order to progress in your own endeavors. Ayoola, are you seeing the ecosystem around you getting to that point where you're able to grow the business? What are some of the barriers that you've experienced, considering some things that are out of your control?
Yeah, I mean, in sub-Saharan Africa particularly, we have to develop the business from scratch. It's a market that exists, but with no particular legacy. You have to build everything. I'll take a typical example. You have a woman who is about 50 years old. That's a typical customer. She's a small business owner. And she probably has hypertension. She stays in a remote environment in Nigeria, where there's lack of infrastructure, there's lack of roads. If anything goes wrong with the refrigerator, she has a livelihood for her family. There's a chance that this woman probably would go hypertensive or lose her stock. Now, infrastructure does not exist, telecom structures do not exist, the road network is not the best. how would you ensure that this type of woman using your refrigerator survives? And that's what breeds innovation. And there's that infrastructure doesn't exist that we have to figure out a way around it. So I would say to a large extent in Africa, we still necessarily have to build from the scratch up to ensure that the ecosystem in itself, it's valuable. Yeah.
Thank you. Yuma, opportunity or a barrier?
Both. So yeah, I'm from Japan, so actually I'm very excited to the environment that you have to build everything. Because in Japan, you have to destroy legacy systems first when you want to do something new. Yeah, and if you look at what Alibaba did 20 years ago in China, they wanted to start an e-commerce company, but they had to build payment system, Alipay, and a logistics system by themselves. Now they need more data, so they build a Ali Cloud, right? So, and then those each solution for themselves to achieve their mission of e-commerce becomes their great business. So I believe that we have to be optimistic that in our case, same or electricity issues, logistics issues, we also have number plates issues in Ethiopia, but by solving each problem, each is essential. On top of that, each has the potential to become the business. You just mentioned the convincing landlord to have a lot of stations. Once it's tough, but once you achieve that, maybe we are the best real estate company now.
Is that the next evolution of the company? Are you thinking long term? Uka, can you jump in, especially when you think about the farming community in industry on the continent, very developed, very entrenched in a lot of these countries. How do you crack into that? How do you convince people to innovate? What's that been like?
Okay, so we are talking about a continent that has a large deficit of infrastructure. And when we look at Africa, then we have to think partnership strategically. Because capital is not all sufficient. And considering capital is not so sufficient, then it means that we need to think deeply to know who are the prevailing partners who are building innovative solutions that we can do a plug and play with. For instance, we figured that a large percentage of the farmers we work with, they are underserved, they are underbanked, and what we had to do was to leverage technology to do geomapping and to work with the farmers to be able to make them worthy for financing. That took a lot of work. It took about 5 years of work, moving into communities where, communities where road access was a problem. And at the point where this happened, we noticed that community members were able to earn more. A lot of economic growth happened within these communities, and then farmers were doing a lot better than they were doing prior to all of the financing came.
Yeah. Martha, are you seeing that growth in the financing? I know you and your team published a climate report. Where have you seen interest from within the continent and also outside of the continent?
In terms of specifically
for
startups?
startups.
No, I think yes. Right now, there's a big push, especially on green solutions, renewable solutions. So I think, and anything that is tech-enabled as well. And as has been said, over the last few days, tech is now is everywhere. So even though we are not necessarily tech investors, you are looking for applications, startups that can add some tech, some efficiency, more knowledge, more data analytics to your businesses. So those are the areas where I see financing growing. Yeah.
Where do you all think there is room for growth, though, when it comes to financing into your solutions and maybe even the messaging around what it is that you're doing? Yuma? Where do you think there is room for growth in terms of financing and channeling financing into what it is that you all are trying to do?
Yeah, so financing really matters. I believe that if whatever solutions, the electricity or mobility, if we don't solve fundamental finance issues, then the business will not grow. it's good to talk about ESG and then climate goals, but those are just supplementary to me. That the most important thing is that we have to solve the financing problems for our customers, and also to do that, either you build the financing solutions by yourself or you find the right partner so that you fundamentally solve the financing issues.
Ayoola?
Yeah, I think for me, financing for Koolboks, I would say, has been pretty smooth, I would say. And I think one of the main reasons is you have a real problem you're trying to solve. As I said earlier, you have 600 million people that lack access to refrigeration, electricity. It's almost impossible to exist in some parts of the world without a refrigerator, so you can imagine what problem we're trying to solve. And we can't solve it alone. So if you have a product market fit, if you're able to have a clear path to profitability, the chances are high that finances will come. So I would always tell myself and my team that the focus should actually be ensuring that we have a business that works, and naturally the finance would fix itself.
How do you get around some of the electricity issues and gaps on the continent? Because that will inevitably affect what it is that you're trying to do. Ayoola?
True. And that's why we exist, actually. So because of these kind of problems is why we exist. Small businesses do really suffer from lack of electricity. Just try and picture, again, a typical market woman who in a marketplace who has to rely on what I call a gamble effect, because you're not even sure when the power would come or not. And then there you are, every other day you have to throw away your goods in the nearby river due to lack of power supply. And then the only alternative you have is to run a diesel generator. Thanks to inflation and thanks to Forex and thanks to high increase in cost of fuel right now, it's almost impossible to run a 24-hour generator to power your refrigerator. The only opportunity we have is to get you sun and water to be able to refrigerate and give you an opportunity to pay in installments to own a refrigerator. So I would say to a large extent, this has been an opportunity for us, and we're capitalizing on that. And of course, I would like to employ a lot of people to come into the space, because 40% of food is wasted every year in sub-Saharan Africa due to lack of electricity.
Do you find, Uka, thank you for that, do you find challenges in convincing international investors and people who don't live on the ground what some of the needs are to help grow and scale your business?
Oh, yes. Initially, we saw a lot of challenges, right? Speaking with quite a lot of international investors, I remember sometimes we had to re-echo the realities that happen. My kind of business is with smallholder farmers, which is not the kind of farmers you will see outside of Africa. And then we're talking about farmers who farm on a hectare or under a hectare of land, right? And then further convincing on the realities of the smallholder farmers, the fact that they live in rural communities, the fact that they are unbanked, the fact that moving products from the farm gate to warehouses, the fact that there's also deficit of infrastructures like warehouses, like a road network, and also a stable market to sell their commodity. It's a whole lot of challenge, mixed, mumbled all together, right? I had spoken about partnership. We've leveraged on the strategic partners. We've seen some investors who are not just financial investors only, but investors who can provide some unique infrastructure to be able to scale growth. And also, no bank would invest in what they cannot see clearly. No bank would invest in anybody, or no financial institution will invest in any products that they cannot be able to trace from one step to another or say there's something wrong, right? So our job primarily is to provide the lens for decision making, especially as the smallholder farmer is concerned. We see the smallholder farmer as an individual in the ecosystem, in the wider ecosystem of things. For financing to be infused on, right? So that's why technology for us is important, because we see that at the point visibility is created, then financing should be able to, some sort of financing should be able to happen.
Thank you for that. Martha, what is going to be key for momentum in innovation to continue to build over the next few years?
I think it's, as been said by all the panelists, it's solving real problems, yeah? If I just relate to what Ayoola was talking about, in our supermarket, at least 15% of our products are fresh, that we are sourcing from 20,000 farmers, yeah? If we could provide them a way to store those products, what happens in Kenya is the fresh products are transported overnight because it's cooler. And we know, at least in Kenya, over 50% of farm losses are happening because of a lack of that cold chain, okay? So partnering with the supermarket, providing Koolbokses to these farmers, one, I think solves your financing challenge, but two, you're solving a real problem for a customer who ultimately could either be, your exit plan or your exit plan to, to other supermarkets. So I think what is key for startups is make sure you're solving a real problem for people who are in your ecosystem. I'm not entirely convinced our startup infrastructure is like the one you have in Silicon Valley. You'll go to Series F, you'll go to Series G, and then eventually you'll IPO. I'm not saying it's impossible, but today I would really like to emphasize, don't only look at private equity, but also look at corporates, especially corporates that have been sponsored by private equity, as potential ways for you to grow your business and ensure your sustainability.
Are you optimistic?
Yeah. I'm optimistic, yeah. I have 3 solutions here.
Oh, there we go. That worked. I think that's a good place to leave it. Thank you all so much for this discussion and for your time.